Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where I talk about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Take Two. So in this episode, a very interesting case this week. Basically, they end up being hired by a dude named Aram, who Sam knows because it's like, oh yeah, he runs a club and everything, and her being the actress she is, she's running those circles. I mean, it turns out he's kind of a mobster too, but in her mind, it's like, oh no, he's kind of a fun mobster. But obviously, Eddie doesn't share that sentiment because obviously he's reluctant about taking this job. But it turns out like, oh, this is about a missing DJ named Eric, which is like, why do you care so much about Eric? It's like, well, it makes me money. Okay, sure. Because Eddie just immediately, obviously him and Aram have bad history, but obviously he doesn't really go into it. We'll find out later on, but obviously I'll get to that soon enough. The twist and it turns in the case, it turns out the lady Megan was hired to drug him and take blood samples. So it's like, okay, what's up with that? Now she's trying to run away because she was trying to someone tried to shove her into a van and take her. So it's like, okay, what's up with that? Turns out those are Aram's people because he ended up finding out that Megan was tied in all of this. So, him being a monster, trying to handle things his own way. Turns out that Eric ends up being his son. That's why he's so aggro about getting this done and everything like that. So it's just kind of very interesting. I mean, obviously I'll run through the case itself, but it's kind of interesting because I wasn't expecting things to kind of play out the way because I knew from the very beginning, like I had a feeling like this had to be like an inside job. I was like, is like Eric's roommate Mark behind this or something? Is it actually an inside job for Eric himself? I thought maybe those two were working together or something like that. The reason why is because what did they do? They asked for Sam specifically. Only a select few people knew that Sam was on this case. So that's why I was kind of like, that's why I kind of initially thought Mark. But then it started changing things when it was kind of like, oh no, like Oleg was getting framed for it. So I was like, the guy that Aram has beef with, because both of them are actually fighting over Deacon's territory, because him being the big crime boss that he was kind of being removed from the equation kind of leaves a vacuum and they're trying to grab it up, which is kind of an interesting storyline, kind of all on its own, because it's like, oh yeah, like just because Deacon's arrested in the first episode doesn't, like what I brought up before, like there's no way that storyline's done. Like there's got to be more to it. We'll see soon enough. But nevertheless, it turns out that it was actually the guy that works at his nightclub, which once again, it kind of went with what I thought. It's like, oh, it had to be someone who had intimate knowledge about the case to know that Sam was on it, to ask for her specifically. So I did like that moment, like, no matter what the circumstances is, Eddie cares about Sam, because when the time came, like, it's like, oh crap, what happened? Well, the camera went out, he ran up the building looking for her. Luckily, nothing happened, because they had no intentions of hurting Sam. They weren't even trying to hurt, well, they were kind of, this was all revenge is what this all comes down to, because of what Aram's life is, being the mobster. I mean, that's actually why he never actually told Eric who he really was. Like, oh, I'm your dad, because he never wanted his son mixed up in all of this. It's just kind of serendipity brought them back together, essentially. It's like he's always kept an eye on him, but then Eric comes in, like, trying out for the DJ position at his club, and it's like, oh, he uses this as an opportunity to stay closer to his son without really getting to, like, oh, hey, I'm your son. I mean, you're my son type of thing. So, like I said, it's just kind of sad because it's all just ended up being a revenge plot. Kind of the same thing. The dude behind all of this, Carter, was in the same situation. It's just like, I lost someone I love because of what Aram did. And Aram did all this, running around, kind of being all panicked because he's a parent looking for a son. So it's kind of like, you kind of got what was coming back to you. It's so sad because your son just kind of got caught up in the middle of it because this was all about taking you down. And at the same time, he was telling Eddie, like, just let Oleg and, Aram take each other out because they're both bad people. It's not like they're good people, but for Eddie, it's like, that's not how things are done. Yeah, he doesn't like Aram because it's something that even comes up later on, because, like I said, Sam had her opinion of him, but then she kind of saw the darker side of Aram when he pulled a gun out on her and put it in her face and blaming her that things didn't go according to plan, which is like, that wasn't on her, it's because it's like, oh, because of you, my son might end up, and then Eddie took the gun and was like, yo, you do that again, it's going to be me and you, and it's not going to end well, essentially, But Sam kind of brought up, like, oh, Eddie, why did you, like, why do you work with a guy like that? You know what he is, yet you still took this job. And for him, it's like, because it's not about him, it's about Eric. Eric's the victim in this situation. He's an innocent person in all of this. So, and then eventually he talks about the fact is, yeah, there's jobs that you could say no and no, but considering what your job is, you kind of have to rely on these positions. Like, you need to say yes every once in a while because you need to pay the bills, or you won't get paid if you just keep saying no. So even though you don't want to, you do have to take certain jobs that you don't like, which kind of plays into Sam's situation, which I'll talk about soon enough. So it's like, oh yeah, you as an actress should know, because there's plenty of jobs that you don't want to do, but you do because it's like, hey, it's just part of the gig, So I was kind of surprised when Eddie kind of let him get the face-to-face, but I guess it was just because he was like promising not to tell, like promising that Carter won't tell anyone, because because that could always come back, and Eric could kind of get caught up in the middle of because of his dad's situation, kind of get caught up in the middle of it again. But I think it was ultimately like, it's kind of a good thing, just because it's like, because if Aram had hurt him, all you'd be doing is, eventually your son would find out that you did this for him, and it's like, oh, you killed someone in my name, I didn't ask you to do that. Plus, when he finds out why Carter did it in the first place, it's like, yeah, you'll lose your son forever if you do that. So, like I said, I wasn't expecting, like, I thought Aram was just going to let it go, but it's like, no, he wanted to meet the person face to face they met. So, I mean, it seems like everything's good. So, it wasn't how I really expected that kind of play out. Because in the long run, no matter what the circumstances played out, like, there's no reason to get the police involved because of all of that too, but mainly also because like no one was actually hurt. Yeah, Eric was kidnapped and drugged, but like no one died or anything with this case, so it's kind of like we can kind of sweep it under the rug type of thing. So I am curious to see will we kind of see Aram pop back up in the story or not. Maybe not. I don't know. It does seem like we are going to be getting more Zeus. I was like, yeah, Zeus seemed like a character when they set him up last episode. Like, yeah, that seems like a character we'll probably be seeing from time to time. He's the one that hooks him up with the surveillance. But other than just kind of main overarching plot, I do love in this episode we have both Sam and Eddie keeping secrets from each other. For him, he's keeping the whole like him and Aram's history, and then for her, it's like she's got some secret thing going on and not telling Eddie. And each one hires their assistant / buddy / co-workers. Like obviously, like Eddie has Berto talk to Monica to find out whatever it is that Sam's up to. Sam asked Monica to meet up with Berto to find out what Eddie and Aram's history is. And when the time comes, like obviously Berto had his reservations because he really likes Monica, but he doesn't know how to really talk to her. She's a lot more blunt and straightforward. She asked him out, and then they kind of start talking, and I love it. Like they're both trying to ask questions, and then eventually they both piece it together. Like, wait a minute, you were asked to do this, yeah, and you were asked to do that. It's just kind of interesting how that kind of worked out. That they got asked by their respective like partners in the situation of like, oh yeah, like help me out, look into this thing about the other. It's funny how it worked out like that. It's kind of sad, even in the end, like when Berto was kind of like, oh yeah, like he's about to ask her out again. She's like, yeah, don't. And it's like, oh, that sucks. Maybe it's just kind of like, I mean, it seemed like he might have been trying to summon up the courage to do it, but I guess it's kind of like, yeah, our date situation didn't kind of really work out, or maybe just, maybe Monica's just not interested in it. Maybe there's more to it. I don't know. We do kind of see more of Monica's side of things. She kind of profiles, like pieces certain things together, ends up her and Berto together kind of give Sam and Eddie what they need to kind of find out who the kidnapper is in this other situation. So it's just kind of interesting. Like I said, just seeing her kind of going all Criminal Minds profiling, like, oh yeah, this and this means this because the kidnapper said this first. I asked about the money first, and then said about your son Eric because of the gut, and then added in they had Eric gut punch, at the end. So it's just kind of interesting how she pieced it all together, especially when it came to like the print, and it's like, oh, like the kidnapper has to be this, and this, and it kind of whittled down the list. So I thought that was kind of a nice touch. But both situations, obviously, first of all, we talk about Sam's situation. I love what hers ends up being. Hers ends up being like a pizza commercial. Because for her, she didn't want to do it, but she kind of has to be like a pizza mascot in a commercial. You can tell it's like being green screened and stuff like that. She's like, yeah, tell me it's only going to air in Italy because she thought it was embarrassing and stuff like that. But it's like, as Sid says, you're taking baby steps. So she does say something interesting, which is kind of like, yeah, you keep doing this. Obviously, you get a good enough of jobs that you never have to work with Eddie anymore. She's like, yeah, like obviously like she doesn't want that. So that's going to be the thing going forward. Like obviously like for now it seems like she can kind of balance her acting career with working with Eddie, and obviously the whole working with Eddie thing's kind of become mandatory because of last week's episode, but still like she doesn't want to give that up, but she doesn't want to give up being an actress either. So I think that's going to be something we'll see soon enough, like when the time comes in the next 6 months, like when it's no longer mandatory that she has to work with Eddie, like what ends up happening. I like to think like I was like, oh yeah, she'll ultimately we have to wait and see. It's kind of interesting because Zeus kind of pokes fun at Eddie about the whole situation because it's like, oh, you brought her in and everything. He's like, well, yeah, she's got her own office and everything. It's like, what? She's got a name on her door? He's like, no, I didn't allow her. I didn't tell her she could do that. Yeah, but you ain't tearing it down. So it's like, oh, that speaks volumes. He's like, Eddie's like, it's not like that. Because even like Sid is like, wait, are you and Eddie? She's like, no, it's not like that. Which is like, maybe it is like that. To be fair, it can't be like that because Eddie's got a situation with the cop lady. Which to be fair, like her situation, well, once again, it seems like, well, is that kind of like a relationship thing, or is that just kind of like we're having fun thing? I feel like it's kind of we're having fun thing. But even then, like it makes me wonder, like I feel like Sam and Eddie, like that's going to be a thing. But at the same time, it might be kind of like the whole like, oh man, maybe yes, maybe no between us, but also maybe it's just gonna be like, no, we're just want to be partners and friends in this situation. Maybe not. We'll ultimately have to see. But what we interestingly enough, like Zeus ends up telling Sam finally about the whole situation with why Eddie has such a problem with Aram. It turns out I was kind of shocked because I thought it dealt directly with Aram. It was more like Aram's kind of a byproduct of something. Basically, there was a crooked unit of cops and Eddie whistleblowed on them. But Eddie knew taking them down would basically take down his career because no matter what the circumstances were, it's kind of like they were kind of treated as like the golden guys of like, yeah, they might do a little shady stuff here and there. But it's also that bad thing of like, I guess almost you make the argument the Blue Veil situation of like no matter what the circumstances are, you rat it on other cops, so that kind of shuns him. The other cops kind of shun him. That's how he ended up losing his job in the first place. Like, because I think just in my mind it was always kind of like, oh, potentially Eddie probably just quit being a cop and just is like whatever a case went the wrong way and he decided that he wanted to kind of go his own way, So that's kind of my that's what I was kind of thinking in the beginning, but now we see like what that's all about, why Eddie is where he is right now. And in all honesty, and it's something Zeus says, like given a chance, he'd do it again because they were bad people, doing some very bad things, and he is a good cop, he's a good man, so he decided to stop them. And so at the end, they both learn each other's secret. I wonder how he did find out about what Sam was up to. I wonder, was it Berto actually, unbeknownst, like it never got brought up, but it's like, I mean, Eddie is very good at what he does anyway, so he probably did just figure it out on his own. Maybe he told her, maybe he's got like a tracker on her phone or something. Might end up turning out to be something like that. It's probably one of those things where they'll probably reference it later on, like, oh yeah, like this comes in handy. It's like, oh yeah, wait a minute, is that how you found me at that commercial? They might reference it like that. We'll see in the end. But overall, it was a very nice episode. Kind of like one of those kind of like, oh yeah, things worked out in the end. Like, yeah, the case was a little complicated in certain regards, but I mean, no one died. There was no war between these two like mobsters, so everything's good, So things are good for Sam, obviously working. Like I said, learned a little bit about Eddie's past too. There's steps being taken between the whole Monica and Berto situation, so that's good. We kind of got to see more of Monica and Berto in his situation of like, yeah, being very nervous and stuff like that, having to talk himself up with like, yeah, I'm Mr. Confident, you got this. And her being like, okay, Mr. Confident, and I got this. Let's go for a drink of coffee. Was it coffee? Nevertheless. So either way, I'm very interested to see what goes down in the next episode. All right, one more thing I wanted to talk about too. I completely forgot about this. It just clicked in my head. I did love the whole fact is that Eddie, like when obviously they were trying to get the surveillance tape, it's so interesting like how Eddie has like a suitcase full of fake badges and stuff like that, trying to be a DHS agent and stuff like that. And I love he tries to come and do his own thing, but then you have Sam coming in and kind of blowing up the scene. To be fair, she even calls herself out later. She's like, oh, I wasn't being a character. I was acting too big, cause she's kind of making too much of a scene, making the dude be like, oh yeah, you better help us out or we're going to put you on the list. And it's just kind of like, wow, you went hard. But Eddie was still kind of impressed, I think, no matter what the circumstances may be. Once again, it's like, you can't count Sam out. I mean, there's a whole like teaching Aram the breathing technique for actors, her piecing it together about she's the one that found the print on the shoes and stuff like that. she does throw out some wild theories. It turns out all her wild theories end up having some connection to her show Hot Suspect, which is like, that's kind of your biggest thing to pull from, source of information to kind of pull from when it comes to like the whole cop world. And it's like, of course you're going to use that when it comes to like trying to figure out like what exactly happened. I'm very interested to kind of learn about that more and more when it comes to like that show. I wonder, like, will it play any bigger roles like going forward? Like, it'd be kind of interesting. They might not do it, but a storyline where it's like, oh, they bring this show back, but they make it so her character got killed. Like, you know, something weird like that. Or it's going to be like, oh, it's been a time skip or something. Someone else is playing that role. Like, I think that'd be kind of an interesting episode. I mean, it doesn't mean it's going to happen, but I thought that'd be kind of interesting. But I'm curious to see, like, will we see kind of more of it? We saw a little bit of it in the first episode, but beyond that, like, it seems like that's like her big, like, breakout role, but I'm curious what else she's also done too, because it hasn't really come on. Maybe it has, but I don't really remember it, but nevertheless. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and good